We're at the start of a new month, so let's talk about what I read last month. Welcome back, and let's do a June reading wrap-up. June was a pretty good month for me, reading-wise. I enjoyed pretty much everything that I read. I didn't read as much as I thought I would, what with the start of summer. With the start of my summer break, it was a little bit more hectic than summer break usually starts off, so I didn't get quite as much reading done as I anticipated, but the first book that I read in June was The Intern by Michele Campbell. This is one of my Book of the Month books, and my TBR jar picked it a while back, and I finally got around to it. This was really good. This one kind of took me by surprise a little bit. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. It's a legal thriller, and it's about a Harvard law student, and she lands an internship in this judge's office that she has idolized for years. And the only problem is that kind of around the same time that she lands this internship, her brother is arrested and has been in jail, and the judge presiding over his case is the judge that she now works for. So she's kind of caught in the middle between wanting to do what she can to help her brother now that she's kind of involved in the system, and not wanting to jeopardize this great opportunity that she has. As she continues to work and get to know Judge Conroy, and while simultaneously learning about her brother's case and what's going on with that, her brother goes missing while he's in jail. And this brings up questions of the judge's morality, I suppose. The main character, Madison, her brother, believes that the judge that she works for is corrupt. And so as we've got these kind of parallel timelines happening with our main character as she's trying to work through her brother's case, she's also trying to establish herself in this professional position, while also kind of getting more and more drawn into the judge's life outside of chambers. She begins house sitting for the judge, and they kind of strike up a couple of conversations, and then the waters get murky, and suddenly they're friends, but also have this professional relationship and a teacher-student relationship. So as our main character kind of gets more and more entwined in the judge's life, she kind of starts to uncover some things that have her digging a little bit deeper. So this is part legal thriller, part kind of like cat and mouse, as both the judge and the main character are kind of trying to like dance around each other and figure out which one is the problem here. So this was great. It was gripping from the start. It was great for summer because it was still kind of lighthearted but mysterious, and it reminded me a lot of the show How to Get Away with Murder. So this was a great one. Up next, I read The Housemaid is Watching by Freida McFadden. This is the third and final book in the Housemaid series, and I won't go into too much detail about this because it is still new and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I also have a whole other video on my channel, a couple videos back, if you want some more detail about this. This was a good book. I enjoyed it. It was kind of a slow first half and then picked up quite a bit for me in the end. There were a couple things that didn't quite line up with the characters from the previous books in the series. For me, I felt kind of a disconnect between who our characters are now versus who they were in the first two books. Overall, I still enjoyed it. I was still surprised by the twist at the end, as I typically am with Freida's books, so this was a good one. Next up, I read Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. This is the second in the Ruinous Love trilogy that she's put out, the first one being Butcher and Blackbird. This one caught me by surprise because I think I was expecting the kind of shock value that we got with the kind of the novelty of Butcher and Blackbird, which, looking back on it now, it doesn't make sense for me to be expecting that because it's kind of hard to recreate that again and again and again. So I felt this one was a little bit slower paced, but it also kind of followed a more traditional storyline and plot structure. There's more character development, there's more relationship development. So in this book we follow Rowan's brother Lachlan, Rowan being the main male character from the first book, and Sloane, the main female character from the first book, her best friend Lark. We follow the two of them throughout this story. And what I do appreciate about this book is that we get more detail about Lark's family structure and the kind of power dynamic and politics of her family and their business. We get a little bit more detail about the brothers. Rowan and Sloane are still very present in this book. They're not the main characters, but their presence is still there throughout, which was nice. It was a little bit slower in terms of kind of violence and gore. I feel like Butcher and Blackbird was definitely more in your face with the killing. Just like with Butcher and Blackbird, the audio for this one was great. There were a couple of inconsistencies I noticed in volume. Like some chapters seemed to be much louder than others, which didn't really bother me. It was just something I noticed. And then if you are somebody who listens to your audio on a faster speed, some of the sound effects, particularly Lark and her laughing, might get a little annoying toward the end. So just keep that in mind, but otherwise is the same great kind of quality of audio effects from the first book, which was one of the things I loved the most about it. So this was a great book. I enjoyed reading it. Again, that's also a June release, so I'm not going to go into too much detail for those of you who haven't been able to read it yet. Next up, I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I am definitely on an Abby Jimenez kick after reading Yours Truly. So I'm working my way through her backlist. This, I loved it. Loved it. Wasn't expecting anything other than absolutely loving it. I do wish that I had started with this one before picking up Yours Truly. I didn't realize Yours Truly was part of a series, so when I got it with my book of the month, I just dove in as if it were a standalone. And these books do stand alone because they focus on different characters within this universe. I do wish that I had started with this one first. But I have since moved on to her third book, Just for the Summer, which I'll go into later. But I loved everything about this. In June, I finished up Once Upon a Broken Heart. This one I struggled with. I started this at the beginning of May and just kind of clawed my way through it. I know this is part of a bigger series, and so I'm debating whether or not I want to continue on in the series. It did pick up a little bit more toward the end, and I became more invested in the storyline and in the characters toward the end of this book. And I know that's kind of common with a series, especially a fantasy series. There's so much kind of info dumping and background information that has to go into creating this world. But I just kind of thought it was boring. So I don't know if I want to dedicate more time and energy into a series that I didn't enjoy the first book as much. I've heard such great things about this series, so if you've read it and you have insight into whether or not it becomes more engaging or more exciting, please let me know whether or not I should continue. And my final read was a Kindle read. This was an early copy of When She Was Me by Marlee Bush. This came out on May 7th. I got an early copy from Poison Pen Press. Thank you very much. And I wasn't able to get to it before release date, so I just finished reading this one, and this one took me by surprise. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and I think I made some assumptions when the story started about how gripping it was going to be and how surprised I was going to be, and this one definitely proved me wrong. This story follows two sisters. They're twins, and they have become recluses, essentially. They live in a cabin on this campground. There are 3 cabins total. The owner lives in one, they live in the other, and then the 3rd cabin gets rented out. Well, the owner dies, and the property gets bought out by a new person. And so in the beginning of the story, there's a little bit of uncertainty and drama about whether or not these girls are going to have to uproot their lives because of this sale, this change of hands. And it becomes apparent very early on that there is some definite trauma in these girls' backgrounds. One sister doesn't leave the house. She's agoraphobic. And the other sister has made it her purpose, essentially, to take care of her sister. So if you read Phantom Limb by Lucinda Berry, there are some similarities in the relationship between the sisters. Twists are very different, so don't read too much into that. Shortly after the new owner takes over, a family comes in for the weekend to rent out that 3rd cabin, and they have a teenage daughter. Teenage daughter goes missing for a couple of days, and they send out search parties. They're searching the forest, the entire property, and eventually she turns up dead. So as the drama starts to unfold, the sisters are cautious and suspicious of several different things. The story is told from a few different perspectives. We've got chapters that are told in present day, and in the present day chapters we alternate between the two sisters, between Lenora's perspective and Cassie's perspective. And then we also have chapters that are flashbacks, chapters that are from then. And we don't know whose perspective we're getting in these chapters from back then. So as we're kind of bouncing back and forth between back then and present day, we're trying to kind of piece these clues together to figure out whose perspective we are reading from in the flashbacks. And we start to develop, at least I started to develop some assumptions about who is actually speaking in these chapters, and I was very wrong. That's where this book took me by surprise. Because we're juggling so many different perspectives, in the beginning it was a little difficult to kind of pick up the threads. Not too difficult. I never got to the point where I was just utterly confused and didn't want to continue on. It felt like there was a lot of kind of bouncing around at first, and I realize now that was necessary. So if this is one that you pick up, be patient and power through, because it was worth it. It was very, very worth it. And this, Marlee Bush is a debut author. This is her debut novel. It was great. I have my go-to thriller authors, and I always am kind of hesitant when I read a new thriller author, and this one did not disappoint. I'm very excited to see what she comes out with next. I will be keeping a close eye on her new publications from here on out. So pick this one up. It was a great summer thriller as well. Even though it takes place during the colder months, I think the atmosphere of the forest, the woods that the story was set in, just kind of made it feel like quick weekend getaway almost. So again, thank you to Poison Pen Press for giving me an early release, an early copy. This was phenomenal. I loved it. One of the standouts, I think, from the month. So check this one out if you are looking for a new thriller author or just a new thriller in general. This was a winner. So now's the point in the wrap-up video where I would normally pick some prompts from my TBR jar to pick out a couple of books that I want to read in July. I am going to forego the TBR jar this month because I'm on summer break. I want to just mood read. I don't want to be stuck to a specific schedule or list of required reading. I want to just read wherever the wind takes me. And so I'm going to go over what I am currently reading. And I have an idea of a couple that I might want to try to fit in this month. But other than that, I'm just gonna go where the wind takes me this month. I am currently reading The Women by Kristen Hanna, and this is partially for pleasure and partially for work. As a high school English teacher, one of the books that I teach to my classes is The Things They Carried, which is a Vietnam War story. And I am reading this with the hopes of being able to work it into that unit somehow. I am about, let's see, I'm listening to the audio and reading the physical copy. So I left off in my audiobook chapter 8. Just finished chapter 8. So I just finished chapter 8 in my audiobook, which puts me on page 89. And this is a story of a young woman who her brother goes to fight in the Vietnam War, and it's this huge honor for their family. And she decides that she wants to join him. So she goes to nursing school, and then she joins the army with the intention of going to Vietnam. She comes from a Navy family, so her decision to join the army is based on the limitations that some of the branches of the military placed on her with her nursing experience. Since she was fresh out of nursing school, the army is one of the only branches that would allow her to go right to Vietnam. Some of the other branches required a couple of years of experience working in hospitals before being sent overseas. So she is defying a lot of her family's expectations in multiple ways. Just by going to Vietnam, and then by going to Vietnam as a member of the army instead of a member of the Navy. And so this is the story of Vietnam from women's perspectives. And I love it so far. It's really, really good. And I am also continuing on my Abby Jimenez kick, and just started Just for the Summer. I started this last night, so I'm only 2 chapters in, and I don't have much to say about that just yet. Just that I anticipate probably getting a decent chunk of this read today because we are in triple digits all week and I don't want to leave my house. So I'm going to be reading a lot this week. So those are the 2 I'm starting with. I think that I'd also like to finish up the Brown Sisters series this month. I have the 3rd book, which is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. And then I'm not sure where I'm going to go after that. I have a couple of YA books I might like to dive into and a couple literary fiction, but I'm not too sure. So I'm just going to wait and see how I feel after I finish these 2. Overall, June was a pretty solid month, and I'm looking forward to July. I think it's going to be a knockout month for reading, and I'm excited. So thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to chat with you in the comments about what you're reading, what you've read, what you're looking forward to reading. So let me know. Spill the tea. Let me know everything. What have you read that you loved? What have you read that you didn't like? What are you looking forward to reading? I just want to know it all. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button so we can continue talking about books. I think July is also going to be a great month for videos because I have some fun ideas and I have the time to get creative. So I am very much looking forward to having some fun with my channel here as well as the content that I put out on Instagram. So I'd love to keep in touch with you there as well. You can find all my info down below in the description box for other bookish places that we can stay in touch. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Goodreads, and those are all linked down below. I'm coming up with my next video will be a mid-year reading journal check-in, and coming up sometime soon, I'm not entirely sure when, I'll also be kind of setting up a new reading nook. So I'd like to document that process as well. If those are things that you're interested in seeing, then keep your eye out for those. And until next time, happy reading, friends.